Imagine if, the moment you were born, the hospital staff slapped a barcode on your forehead and just called you Subject 402. No name, no history, no expectations, just a blank slate in a system. Sounds terrifying, right? Like something out of a low-budget sci-fi movie. But here's the kicker. That's exactly what society did to you, just with a slightly more pleasant label. You were given a name before you even knew how to hold your own head up. Your parents, or whoever filled out the paperwork, essentially branded you with a title, a sound, and a history that you had zero say in. And yet, you've spent your entire life trying to figure out if that name actually fits. Why do we do this? Why is it one of the first things we demand to know when we meet a stranger? Hi, nice to meet you. What's your name? It's a reflex, but beneath that reflex is a complex psychological dance that's been going on since we lived in caves. Today we're going to strip back the label and see what's actually underneath. Humans are obsessed with control, and the ultimate mechanism of control is labeling. If you can name a storm, it becomes a distinct event you can prepare for. If you can name a plant, it becomes a specific resource you can harvest. And if you can name a human being, you can slide them neatly into a mental filing cabinet. For the vast majority of human history, our early ancestors didn't actually need fixed personal names. When living in tiny, tight-knit bands of 15 or 20 people, you didn't need a formal syllable tag to distinguish someone. You just pointed, gestured, or used situational descriptions. Everyone knew who you were because you were physically standing in front of them every single day. So why did we invent personal names? The transition happened when early human groups hit a biological wall known as Dunbar's number. Evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered that the human brain can only comfortably maintain stable social relationships with about 150 individuals. Once human settlements expanded past that critical threshold, your brain could no longer keep track of every person's character through direct observation alone. Names weren't created as romantic gifts or artistic expressions. They were created as an administrative ledger for survival. You weren't just a face. You were John the Hunter, or John who lives by the oak tree. Your name was a search query designed to help the tribe track reputation across distance and time. It allowed the group to whisper behind your back, to remember who shared their food, who owed a debt, and who was Steve, the guy who keeps stealing meat. As tribes grew into complex civilizations, names shifted from functional job tags into instruments of social engineering. Kings were given titles designed to echo through centuries, while peasants carried labels forgotten before the sun set. When your parents named you after a revered relative or a cultural icon, they inadvertently placed a silent ghost on your shoulder. You were no longer just an open-ended human being. You were the continuation of the family legacy. We like to believe we are completely independent thinkers, but a staggering portion of our choices is just us performing the hidden script embedded in our syllables. That ancient social tracking system became so essential to our ancestors' survival that our nervous systems literally rewired themselves around it. When cognitive neuroscientists put human subjects into fMRI brain scanners and read them lists of random vocabulary, words like table, mountain, or running, the brain processes them through standard calm language regions. But the instant the audio plays the specific phonetic combination of the participant's own name, the brain reacts as if an emergency flare went off. Within less than 100 milliseconds, regions like the left superior temporal gyrus light up with intense electrical activity. This happens long before your conscious mind even registers what was said. This is the neurological engine behind the famous cocktail party effect. You can be standing in a deafening, crowded room with 50 people shouting over each other, ignoring every surrounding conversation. But if someone across the room whispers your name, your auditory cortex instantly slices through the wall of noise and locks onto it. Your brain does not treat your name as ordinary language. It treats it as an unblockable, hardwired alarm signal. In our evolutionary past, failing to hear your name called could mean missing a vital danger signal or a social threat. Today, that same wiring means you are perpetually tethered to a word you didn't choose. If you think your name is restricted to your internal psychology, look closely at your own reflection in the mirror. There is a bizarre psychological phenomenon known as the Dorian Gray Effect, named after Oscar Wilde's famous character, whose physical portrait transformed based on his internal life. Researchers at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem conducted a series of landmark studies where they presented participants with photos of complete strangers' faces and asked them to guess each person's real name from a multiple-choice list. Statistically, pure chance should have yielded a 25% accuracy rate. Yet, human participants consistently guessed the strangers' real names at rates far above chance. When researchers fed the same face images into advanced AI algorithms, the artificial intelligence confirmed the exact same finding. Certain facial structures consistently correlate with specific names. How is this possible? Because every name carries cultural expectations, social stereotypes, and subtle personality traits. If society subconsciously expects a person named Joy to be warm and expressive, or a person named Arthur to be stern and composed, that individual adapts their micro-expressions, facial muscle tone, and resting posture to align with those social cues over decades. By the time you reach adulthood, the arbitrary vocal label stamped on your birth certificate has literally sculpted the physical layout of your face. The packaging has reshaped the product. This brings us to a subtly narcissistic quirk of human nature. Your name is quietly steering major life choices you assume you made with logic and free will. Psychologists call this implicit egotism or the name-letter effect. Because your brain associates your name with your core self, you develop an unconscious preference for places, professions, and objects that mirror the letters and phonetic sounds of your own label. When researchers analyzed massive public census records, they found startling statistical patterns. People named Dennis or Denise are disproportionately more likely to become dentists. People named Lawrence or Lori are statistically overrepresented in law schools. People named Ken are statistically more likely to choose accounting, move to Kentucky, or date someone named Kelly. It sounds absurd, almost like a cosmic joke or a cheap horoscope, but it is documented data. We naturally gravitate toward patterns that mirror our own identity. We navigate life believing we are making complex, independent choices, when in reality, we are often just following the unconscious breadcrumbs of our own initials. And in the modern age, this profiling has been amplified. We live in an era where personal branding is treated like a religion. You worry about how your name looks on a resume, how it renders on LinkedIn, or how authoritative it sounds when introduced in a boardroom. We form split-second judgments based on sounds people had no hand in choosing. We hear a name and think, that sounds like a CEO, or that sounds like an artist. Because we treat those with solid, authoritative names as competent, they receive subtle bursts of positive reinforcement. They walk taller. They speak with more assurance. The label creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, marketing a product before it's even tested. Underneath all the psychology, neuroscience, and social games, there is a far deeper, quieter terror that keeps us up at night. We are desperate for our names to endure. Why does the thought of being completely forgotten feel like such an unbearable tragedy? Why do billionaires buy their names onto university buildings? And why do people carve their initials into wooden benches or stone walls? Because deep down, we are acutely aware that our time here is a brief flicker. A name is the only thin thread we get to send into the future. It is our digital footprint, our tombstone, and our quiet plea for immortality. When parents select a child's name, they aren't just assigning a label. They are casting a spell against time. They are trying to ensure that long after their own voices fade, the vibration of their lineage continues echoing through the world. It is a fragile, deeply human attempt to cheat death, to remain a noun after the sentence of our life has ended. But step back and look at the brutal reality of history. How many individual names from 1,500 years ago can you recall right now? 10? 20? The rest have dissolved into silence. The thousands of workers who dragged limestone blocks to construct the Great Pyramids, the poets who wrote songs we still hum today, the parents who held their children under the exact same stars we look at tonight, their individual names are gone. Yet, their impact remains. They built the foundation of our world. They loved, suffered, created, and lived just as intensely as you are living right now. Their worth was never dependent on whether their vocal labels survived the erosion of time. So, if names were invented as administrative tracking tags, if they subconsciously bias our decisions, And if most of them will eventually fade into historical dust anyway, does that mean your name is meaningless? No. It means you've been reading it backward. The mistake most people make is treating their name as a passive noun, a fixed, rigid box that they are forced to inhabit, guard, and polish for the world's approval. To reclaim your agency, you have to stop treating your name like a static label and start treating it like a verb. Your name shouldn't be what you are. It should be what you do. Think of the figures who left an indelible mark on human culture. We don't remember Einstein because those 8 letters sound inherently brilliant. We remember the word because of the relentless curiosity and radical thought attached to it. We don't remember Da Vinci because of his surname. We remember it because the word became shorthand for relentless artistic and scientific creation. The name did not make the person. The action transformed the name into a shortcut for impact. What is your name currently a shortcut for? When someone speaks your name in a room you just left, what feeling lingers behind? Do they think of someone who shows up when things get difficult? A person who creates value? Someone who listens intently, speaks with integrity, and breaks through stagnation? Or do they think of a quiet, predictable spectator following the path of least resistance? You have zero control over the syllables assigned to you in that hospital room years ago, but you have absolute, uncompromising authority over the weight, meaning, and power those syllables carry today. Every single morning you wake up, every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you stand by your values when it costs you something, you are overriding the code. You are rewriting the software inside that ancient label. You do not owe your life to the expectations attached to the label you were given. You are allowed to outgrow the packaging. If you feel trapped in a life that doesn't feel like your own, if you feel like you've been playing a pre-written character to satisfy everyone else's expectations, remember this. The name is just the wrapper. You are the contents. And unlike a printed label, your contents are dynamic, living, and constantly evolving. Refuse to let a few arbitrary vowels and consonants set the ceiling for your potential. Do not allow society's administrative filing cabinet to determine how far you can grow. When you walk into a room, don't just introduce yourself with a sound. Introduce yourself through the clarity of your presence and the force of your impact. The social machine wants you to be a predictable data point. It wants you to stay neatly inside your assigned box where you are easy to categorize, market to, and control. Refuse the box. Be the person whose name becomes a symbol of relentless growth, quiet strength, and genuine original thought. Be the person who makes others say, I thought I knew what that name meant, but I had no idea what they were capable of. That is how you win this game. That is how you take the arbitrary barcode slapped on you at birth, tear off the tracking label, and transform it into a self-authored signature that leaves a lasting mark on reality. Stop managing the label. Start defining the impact.